If you're not early, you're late. This is my test. It appears to be working because this is amateur hour. So, today we have some Star Wars news that has been going around for the last couple of days from the Illuminerdy.com. Now, I've never really read their site, so I don't know if it's like a stellar site. I don't know if it's fake, and I'm not even trying to cast any kind of like shade on them or anything like that. That is not the point. I have no idea. So if everybody else knows something that I don't, then let me know. But they seem to look into casting calls and then try to pull out stories from there. Hey, James. And so, anyways, doing that, it could be a little bit interesting. Like, for instance, if you remember, Poppy had a show. It probably don't. Maybe you do. But Poppy had a YouTube show, like a one-off directed by Titanic Sinclair. And when Titanic Sinclair's production and Poppy's production put out a casting call for Satan, they put out a casting call for basically every single ethnicity that you could imagine. And then Perez Hilton picked up on that and runs that Poppy is trying to cast a black man as Satan. That kind of stuff can happen when it comes to how the media covers a casting call. Why did that happen? Well, it happened because certain casting agents might work with a certain type of actor or only be looking to help a certain actor get placed. So if it looks like something that it wouldn't be fitting for their actor, then it could actually shut down good people applying. So they go out and they will oftentimes do a wide net, So like for instance, if they put if they were just straight up, I'm looking for a Jedi. Well, a certain casting director might just think of Luke Skywalker right away. And then that would mean a Pacific Islander, an actor from the Pacific Islands may not apply, or the casting person might not help them move in that direction because they might just have these cultural assumptions. So today, the Illuminerdi has this story about Barriss Offee, and it says, they say, quotes, and while details have been scarce about the series, we have managed to uncover some truly exciting information, especially for fans of the Clone Wars. According to our sources, Star Wars Ahsoka is looking to cast Barriss Offee. She is listed as a lead character in her 20 to 30, and they are looking to cast an Asian woman for the role. In the Clone Wars, Barriss Offee was voiced by Meredith Salinger, who played, and then just goes on. So, anyways, cool, Nolan. Stay as long as you can, dude. So there we have it right there. Is like, so they are seeing a casting call and they say sources. So that makes it seem like they've like double checked this, or that somebody told them they're casting Ahsoka. I mean, they're casting Barriss, and then they saw this piece of casting news and they're putting it together. But it's really like, it could really go a lot of different ways because, like I said, usually they won't just put out a casting call for one type of person, and she's going to be painted green. So there's a lot of wiggle room for that kind of stuff right there. And on top of it, they will never put out a casting call for Barriss Offee for what that's worth either. They're never going to say, hey, who wants to play Keanu Mundi in this? Is it you? No, they're gonna, like, when they were casting or when they were using stuff, they always use code words like Castro for Saw Gerrera. So they would be like, we're casting for Castro. We want a African American Castro. Like that's what that might have looked like, for instance. And so I'm not so sure what to make of all of this. I'm not sure if, like, because I want it to happen. Like, Barriss Offee is a really interesting character. You know, she has a nice design, and kind of one of the few Jedi who she's basically the anti-Ahsoka. She was brought up in the same failing Jedi Order, saw the same corruption, but she went balls to the wall. She was ready to take it down because it didn't work. And Clone Wars obviously dealt with it in a very, it's a 3D show, but it dealt with the topic in a very 2D way. And I think that the live action series would have a better chance at really getting into, you know, those differences in ideology. Because when you get down to it, one of the things that they're going to have to set up in the Ahsoka show, I would think, is that she's a Jedi, but she's not. And if you haven't watched the Clone Wars, which they cannot expect a large percentage of live action television viewing adults to watch a cartoon. It sucks. It's their loss, but that's just kind of the reality. You can't get people to watch a cartoon. It can be really, really difficult. And so with all of that in mind, okay. So really quickly, Jonathan said, I thought she died in Rebels season 1. Whose body was that in the cell? I believe that was her. That was the master, wasn't it? That was Unduli. Which was I think that was her Jedi master. So yeah, we have this character that is kind of, I think, in a way, is more beloved than she should be. And I say that with like trepidation. Like, it's not really that bad. Like, it's not like she's like overblown, but she comes from an era of Star Wars where there weren't many girl characters. Female characters were just kind of, you know, in short supply. And when they were in there, they were kind of highly sexualized. And I remember one of my weirdest kind of like interactions. Yeah, Luminara Unduli. Thank you, Qui-Gon. Anyways, yeah, one of my weirdest interactions was when she showed up in Clone Wars. They changed the character pretty drastically from what the expanded universe had done. And she was more of a healing nurse type character back then. And this turned her into kind of a terrorist when you really get down to it. And man, some people, they took that hard. They just they flipped out on me. I was like, yeah, you know, okay. So they changed it, but what's working? Don't you tell me how to like or dislike my favorite character. And I was like, whoa, man. Okay, I'm gonna back away from this. You have fun with your books, person. But that said, I'm a bit, how do I have a lot of apprehension about the report itself. And once again, not trying to cast shade on Illuminati. There's just so many like what's really going on here, like aspects to it. And what do you guys in the chat think? Do you guys think that they are reporting like an actual like concrete scoop? I wish I had time to reach out to them. I just decided to do another one of these like on a whim. I made sure to put the link to their story in the description so you can go read it and decide for yourself. James says, yeah, they changed her from the EU. Funny how people talk about how the EU was consistent, and yet the 08 Clone Wars contradicted the EU all the time. Dude, as a huge fan of the Clone Wars from the get-go, like it was a bumpy ride. I mean, you had these like Mandalorian fans who all of a sudden were finding out that not only were they not Maori Mandalorians, they were a bunch of white people, and and they wanted peace for the most part, you know. But it was really obvious to anybody who looked at it for a second and didn't throw a fit on a whim, like this podcast is right now, that that they were going somewhere with it, that there was going to be this tension from it, and it was going to rip apart by the end of the war. Like, and it's easier to say that in hindsight, but it was super obvious because Death Watch showed up with a completely drastically different ideology. And it's like that's kind of an ongoing problem in fandom, if you will, is that they can't comprehend that there has to be tension or there's no story. There's no reason for it to exist. If Luke Skywalker is the perfect dude and he's just this guy who's just willing to save the galaxy and can do it and can kick ass constantly, there's not a lot of journey left there because you just have a way out constantly. So it's like, you need to make that kind of that two differing points of view that don't see eye to eye to reach atonement. Because if you don't reach atonement in a story, what is there? That's all that you pretty much have. So Nolan says the casting description seems more fitting for Sabine rather than Barriss, specifically the age and ethnicity. Great point, Nolan. That is a solid point, because you're right. And you want to know something? I'd bet you, well, I can't bet, but if I had something to bet on the internet.com, on youtube.com, it would be that if this is legit, when they are seeing these people, they might go, you know what? She's not a really good, Barriss, but we should talk to her about Sabine. Or it could be a casting call for both of those characters at the same time, because it really doubles up on the work. If you see, if you see a 100, what did it say? I think it said Asian women. We're looking to cast. She listed as the lead character in the 20s to 30s, looking to cast an Asian woman in the role. So right there, yeah, you kind of have like this Venn diagram overlap once again, where you could simply see 100 women and go, okay, it's one of them. It's one of those two. And probably want to check the Twitter so that way they can make sure that they wear their mask and stuff. I'm kidding. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get in stuff. But Mark says Barriss is going to be frozen in carbonite, so she don't age. Gotta be Sabine. Also, probably true. The one thing I would say about that is the age kind of stuff there. She's going to be in makeup, right? She's going to be painted green. So, in a way, you could cast someone younger with a sophisticated voice, with a voice that can sound wise very easily, with that kind of tone to it, and get away with having them be able to be very active. Because if you cast a 40-year-old right out the get-go, and the show should last for 10 years, you're going to be dealing with a 50-year-old by the end of it. So there is a chance it could go that way, as but Hollywood is so weird when it comes to casting. It's like when you watch like Dawson's Creek or whatever, one of those shows from the 2000s, like some of those kids in there look like they're like 36. so who knows what to make of any of it. But I don't I don't really know what to think about the concept of her coming into the show. Will she be an Inquisitor, or will she just kind of be Ahsoka doing the opposite of what Ahsoka has been doing? Because in a way, like, Inquisitors are cool, and there were rumors that she was going to be in that Star Wars game, and then she was pulled out of it. Fallen Order, that she was going to be one of the characters in that, and then she was pulled out for bigger opportunities. And I've always wondered, would she end up being one of the 12th sister or whatever they're going to call her, one of those Inquisitor types? But if you ask me, I think it would be more interesting if she was not, like I said, the anti-Ahsoka, because Ahsoka is, like, in a certain sense, or I should say the sense that we get of her, almost has like a revenge bent on it. I don't know. Does it? What do you guys think? Does Ahsoka seem to be going after people with a sense of revenge? Because once again, that's very much not the Jedi way, and she's not a Jedi. But she was more, in essence, more moral than any of the Jedi. She was the one who was pretty much consistently doing the right thing, even when she knew that the Jedi were doing the wrong thing. Yeah, yeah, good. Johannes, if I'm saying your name, I apologize. Johannes says, "What about Ezra Bridger and Thrawn?" See, I've wondered about this kind of this aspect of the story. It's once again, it's like a difficult one in the sense that, or I should say, they have a hurdle there because they're going to have to reestablish what happened to Ezra Bridger and Thrawn. So that would, I think, mean maybe even having to do flashbacks and really explaining it. Because once again, like I know too many people who watch The Mandalorian who I could not get to watch the Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels or Resistance. They watch it until they hit a point where they hit something that they don't like, and then they just move on. And so also, if we do get them, will Thrawn be Thrawn if he's been in this crazy place with Ezra? Are they together? Are they having their own saga of are they at war in this other place, or are they together lost? Like there's so many interesting ways that it could be taken, but I have a feeling that they may just concentrate on that mystery and move into it if they were to, because it's a complicated kind of thing to introduce into a TV show all of a sudden. I'm not saying that they're not, for the record. I'm not at all. I'm just kind of scratching my head going, how do you do that? How do you make that work? How do you not confuse the audience in a way that, isn't fun? Like WandaVision confused you and it was fun, but there being a world in between worlds in Star Wars might be a hard one for some people. I still think it's a hard one for people to swallow who love Rebels sometimes. But um old Revan says, I think this will be Rebels light. That's an interesting take. I'm gonna flip that on you. I'm gonna say if it is that, it would be Rebels heavy, in the sense that Rebels usually had to kind of tone it down for keep that Y7 rating and stuff like that. But it would obviously be the natural continuation of the story. So I think whichever way it went, though, I think if you love Rebels, I think you're going to be happy with it. I rewatched Rebels about, I don't know, maybe 6-7 months ago now, something like that, during the pandemic times, and with the kids. And I have to say, I liked it a hell of a lot more than when I watched it weekly. And when you had those moments where it did feel a little fluffy, or it was a little bit of a detour from the main story, was not as bad when you're just consuming it all at one time in a solid story. And that's good, because that's how it's going to be watched forever. But at the time, I think I was a little bit more frustrated with it than I am in 2021. Reskov says, do you think The Mandalorian and its spinoffs will culminate into a potential movie that will act as the grand finale? At one point, I think before Solo, there was there was talk from people like Bob Iger that these standalone Star Wars films would eventually culminate in into an adventure style film, where you have them all kind of team up if they were in the same era. And I have to say that I think it would be kind of foolish of them to not jump on stuff like that to some extent, because it's such a proven kind of way of making serialized films, and really highly profitable ones. With that said, I think it would have to be something based in the franchise that needs that budget kick. And so far, like in Mandalorian, like that show was not cheap. Like they really didn't cut corners. There wasn't ever there weren't too many moments where I was like, wow, this needs more money or this feels super cheap. That didn't really happen very much. That happens to me more with like Bad Batch, at least some of the early stuff where you just keep seeing stuff reused from the old show, or like revisited. But even that hasn't been too bad. But the live action stuff, by all accounts, is not going that way. So as a fan, a part of me seems to value the films more than the series, than the TV shows. But when you get down to it, you get so much more from a series. And I'm like The Mandalorian would have been a great Star Wars film, a great standalone Star Wars film, but we get just that little bit more out of it being a weekly series. I think what we would have got would have been maybe more visual eye candy in terms of like an epic grand battle. Like at the end, when Luke Skywalker shows up in season 2, for instance, he probably would have shown up with a bunch of rebels and there would have been a space battle outside. And it's that kind of stuff could actually be a hell of a lot cooler, but it could also not be. I mean, Rogue One and Return of the Jedi are like the space battles that really do it for me. But you see other space battles and you're like, so in the end, it kind of depends on who's directing, So Dewey, this is a difficult question. What do you think of the leakers in the Star Wars community? Who can we trust and not? Honestly, this is one of those things where I gotta throw the ball back to you. Who has been, who has been proven right consistently, and whose analysis seems to have, steered you in the right way. That's pretty much all that I could say, because, there are times when, like, I don't want to fight anybody. I don't want to get into any drama. You know what I mean? But let's put it one way. There was this one person from a long time ago who was constantly in my direct messages. Hey, can you give me a scoop? Hey, I'm talking like literally like 90 times. I was like, what a fucking psycho. And then eventually they continued just to use, context clues to make it seem like they had scoops. And then I have a big fucking mouth. And I told 2 people something that was coming. They went, put it out. They heard it from one of those people, put it out. And now people think they're legit because they got one thing right. And so, at a time, it angered me. It made me really annoyed, really pissed off. But as it goes on, I've just kind of like thrown up my hands and just been like, you know what? All of these people have brains. All of these people should know, have a memory, and be able to put together like who's full of shit and who's not. And, there are obviously real leakers. And my favorite, just not to be I don't want to be negative. I'm trying not to be a negative person anymore. And I will say that Bespin Bulletin, if I hung up everything and just went away, Bespin Bulletin is the one person I would check when I wanted my Star Wars fix. And when he has solid sources, he doesn't treat them cheaply. He's very cautious and is never loosey-goosey with the information. Like, I've known people who've got scoops, legit scoops, who rarely ever had them. And it would be like, I'm just going to make this up, like something stupid, like there's an X-Wing fighter in the next Star Wars movie. Well, it's an X-Wing fighter, and it was Luke Skywalker's, but now it's Poe Dameron's. Like, they would add so much just bullshit to it. Bespin Bulletin doesn't do that. Since I've been reporting on Star Wars and doing Star Wars stuff since like about 2012-ish, 2013-ish. He's one of the few people who I think over a long period of time has consistently seemed to attempt to do the right thing and to report the news correctly, to not capitalize on your hopes, dreams, and fears. And that's what I think is the most important thing, is that like you wanna help people who love spoilers. You want to help them get ready for what's coming, but you don't want to. You could also crush people on the opposite side of that when you embellish, when you go too far. And that's always what, I never wanted to, like, I've had scoops that have been right that I got wrong, which is the weirdest place to be in. Like when I got the concept art dump for Force Awakens, I was sitting, on hundreds of pieces at the time, and I had a piece of basically Mark Hamill as Kylo Ren. And it was like they had started filming, and I was getting live action footage, or not footage, photos of what they were filming out there. And I was seeing what was in the concept art show up on screen. So it was like, and then I was getting basically the schedule of what was to be shot. So I knew that film fairly early on. And well, Luke Skywalker's not in it. And for once again, everything is coded. To go back to this casting call, everything was coded. Luke Skywalker was the original warrior, not Luke Skywalker, the original warrior. In the flashback, he was the young original warrior, or something like that. And so anyways, I have this moment where you're like, wow, so at the end of the film, does Kira, later to become Rey, show up at this Magic Mountain, which is what it was codenamed, because they all had Disneyland code names, by the way. Like the Falcon was the Carousel, all of these things from Disneyland. But Octu was Magic Mountain, which is a theme park a little ways away from Disneyland if you live in Southern California. And but it showed him with a half robot face, as if he had been through some shit. And so I ran this story, and God, back then, like, I never really realized what type or kind of social anxiety I had until I started doing that. And it was really crazy because I put that story out, and it was maybe my first story to ever blow up. And then it was some other people had known about it and had kind of talked a little bit about it. And so it legitimized me in that moment. At that moment for that story. But I remember with my ex, we went out to like International House of Pancakes afterwards, just like, we're going to leave this alone. And we go out, and then as we're walking out, I just felt so sick. Like I was just like wiped out. Like I had the flu, and I was sick for like that whole night. Woke up the next day, and then it was just like, a lot of people calling me a piece of shit and a liar and stuff like that. And I don't, wasn't going to burn my sore, so I couldn't put the picture out or anything like that, And but yeah, it's really, really like nerve wracking, like reporting on spoilers. Excuse me. And I think that some people can do it and just not care at all what they say, like, or how they say it. And I'm in no way a great writer. I'm never going to try to sell myself as one. But what really sucks is when you are writing, how careful you have to be. Like how you could write something really well and then be like, but you know what? You can infer this from it. You can infer that. And so you end up just kind of writing these awkward pieces where you're like, yeah, here's what I want you to take from it. here's all I can let you know. And anyways, when it comes to leakers, just follow who you want to follow. Like I was talking about yesterday, I know somebody who will, like, there's this one site that just makes up shit constantly. Like, here's a really a telltale, I'd say. Lucasfilm is eyeing, Lucasfilm is eyeing Dale Erdman to be Qui-Gon Jinn Jr., right? Well, number one, they don't eye anybody. What does that even mean? That doesn't mean anything. Like what are they doing? Are they flirting with them, like giving them eyebrows, like, hey, hot stuff, want to be Qui-Gon Jr.? Like, no, that's not happening. Qui-Gon Jr., while everyone wants Qui-Gon Jr., that's going to get the clicks to them. And it's also a bit reductionist in the sense, like, for instance, not casting shade on the Illuminati once again, not, but Barriss Offee showing up in an Ahsoka show is a safe bet. So if you have no sources, you have no scoop that day or that week or for that era, then you can make that up. Like, I could go today and say episode 10 happening, guys. It's in the works. And then someday in the future, they will make episode 10. And when it's announced, told you guys, look at me, legit as fuck. Like, that's how they do it. So, you have like kids sometimes, and they just are kind of gullible in that way. And then sometimes you have adults who just don't care about the truth. I mean, that kind of seems to be the good, theme of our world in the last couple of years. The truth doesn't matter. I would rather live in this fallacy, which is why I'm so into UFOs right now, because they're real, man. It's crazy. But Red 5, what's up, dude? Love this guy. He's a good guy. He's a good man. Fought in a lot of wars with him. Maul and Kenobi, what do you think? God, that is... God, it's funny because one of my favorite voice actors of all time is Steven Stanton. I mean, the guy is way undervalued in Star Wars. You know what I mean? Because he's played so many supporting characters, like he's Tarkin, and he played A New Hope, Kenobi, and Rebels. And man, that performance was killer. Like, he nailed it. And I'm so, like, I have such mixed feelings about it, like, holistically, because number one, it was so badass to have that in Rebels. It elevated the show. Stanton rocked it. At the same time, not being able to put him in Kenobi, or to have to in some way film it from an angle where we don't see Ezra Bridger, because it's so confusing. Unless they just do it. They have him in there, and no, they can't. They can't. It's a different era. I believe it's 10 years after A New Hope, or 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. So Maul can't show up in that series. That I don't think that could happen. Not in a way where they kill each other, and not in a way that doesn't open up a big can of worms, right? And yeah, Vermont Mike says, I don't want to see that. It discredits Rebels. Yeah, and that's the other thing, is you don't want people to invest, hundreds of hours, or I don't know how many hours Rebels is, but hundreds of hours into a TV series, and four seasons, I think. And then go like, oh no, you like some of this stuff. Some of it might have happened, but we don't care. Like that wasn't the promise, was it? The promise was, this is all canon and it all matters. Mistakes will happen. Like we're talking about yesterday, Melshi kind of dying different ways in the various books, and maybe you could chalk that up in the end to they could further canonize that by saying it wasn't clear. There's different records. Excuse me, I'm still got this cold. It sucks. Well, what also sucks is, like, when you go somewhere right now and you have this like little baby cough, because everybody thinks you got COVID. You know, everybody's just like, what are you doing here, man? It's like, hey, I don't have COVID, I swear. I'm vaccinated too. Dell says, as in, here's why Rey took the Skywalker name, the Skywalker Legacy. Yeah, I think I've lost the thread on that one, but I'm all about that in the end. That idea of your found family, your made family, your legacy being what you made, not what someone else gives you. And it's kind of funny because I also feel like in a weird way that's dealing with something in our culture where you have this nepotism. You have these people given, you know, really nice jobs because of who mommy and daddy were. And people are legitimately angry about it. You have, you know, some whole, you know, generations kind of being sort of almost like pushed out of the employment force in certain areas. And then you have nepotism and people are like, this sucks. But then you have this fairy tale logic in the West where everybody wants everybody to be secretly a prince or a princess. And, you know, we all call our daughters princess and all of this stuff. And it's like, royalty sucks. That concept fucking sucks. Like, you know what I mean? And that was why I was so on board with Rian Johnson's Rey being a nobody than becoming somebody, because that's so much more healthy for the culture, I think. But that's just me. First, Kylo Ren lied about his family, then lied about her family. Yeah. And that's like the easy out on that one, because he's not a Sith, but you know, if you're a Sith, if you're a dark side person, you're not necessarily gonna tell the truth. I had a chronic cough. I stopped drinking pop and cut out sugar, Jason. Yeah, that is true. You know what's pretty weird is I cut out sugar sodas. I cannot stop drinking Diet Dr. Pepper. I just can't do it. I also like Dr. Pepper Zero and Coke Zero. When I drink Coke with the fake sugar, the other fake sugar, I will cough. When I drink like Coke Zero, no cough. Really strange. Qui-Gon Jinn. Maul thought he died in Order 66. When Maul and Ezra managed the holocrons, he said something like, he's still alive. Exactly. So that totally means if he shows up 10 years before, they have to do a, oh no, I bumped my head and lost my memory kind of moment of some kind. He Jedi mind tricks him. Something stupid, you know? It wouldn't work. But that's I think the big trade-off, if we want to look at it from maybe from a Lucasfilm perspective, is you've lost because you took Maul right up to Luke Skywalker pretty much being, you know, almost ready to go fight. Now you could have Maul run the criminal organization in the underworld and, you know, be in the dark, seedier side of things as this dark side mobster. And that has more storytelling fuel to the fire for them, I'd say, than him showing up and Kenobi, you know, cutting him in half again and laughing. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I think I would have preferred that drama to have been, you know, played out with Kenobi still. I still would have liked that in live action a lot more. But I'm happy we got some resolution in some way. But I can't help but think it was still kind of a mistake. And I could see how if you're, you know, like Dave Filoni, for instance, didn't have any live action stuff going on. So that was a get, if you will, the ability to kill Maul in there. And there are people at Lucasfilm who legitimately feel that the animation stuff is on the same playing field as the live action, who want it to be anyways. And I totally like that and respect that. That's also where I get frustrated. Like, you know, when it does get cartoony, when it does kind of talk down to children, that's when I get a little bit annoyed with it, because then it's not working for anybody. And I am really careful with my kids to not be critical of their fantasy stuff. You know, what I say to you guys, I don't say to them. I'm not trying to ruin their fun, but it's still kind of funny because like my son the other day, like we were watching something in Star Wars and he had it with Jar Jar Binks, but then he started reiterating stuff. I think he picked up on watching kids YouTube. And so it wasn't even me, but I'm like, yeah, that's what you think. Okay, dude. When you're ready to fight this out as nerds on the nerd battlefield, I'm gonna Luke Skywalker you, Kylo Ren. But yeah. So we'll see. Yeah, 59. What Star Wars projects do you want to see in the future? Movies, TV shows, or even video games? Man, when it comes to like gaming, I love Rockstar. Like Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption, to me, those are like that's video games realized. I like the ability to go in and have an aggressive adventure or just to like chill and to mess around and to play with the world and then to see what happens, like I would love for there to actually be a game like Red Dead Redemption, for instance, with Star Wars. And I did a video on Ragtag. Not that many people watched it, which sucks because like it's like literally the equivalent of spoiling a whole Star Wars movie. But that game was going to be brilliant. And it just kind of like really bums me out that it didn't happen. It was such a mistake on their end because it was such a fun story. When it comes to like other properties, or like live action film and TV shows, I would love for there to be a series that was like, imagine like House of Cards in space with like Qui-Gon Jinn, Dooku, Sifo-Dyas, and like and Palpatine and what happened there. And I would also love to see a young Palpatine story, about there was this leak, an internal leak, somebody who worked on the show who let sip out that Palpatine fell in love essentially with a very dangerous woman who took him down a really bad path. And a lot of people immediately use that as oh my God, they're saying women are bad. And it's just like, come on, man. There are bad women and bad men. Okay. There was a bad woman in this story, like every woman in Star Wars is good and every person, there's good and there's bad. And if you're going to have representation, you got to give the characters all that spectrum of evil and good. So he's taken down this bad way and down this bad path that sets him on that. And that could be a really interesting story if handled properly, if not handled like a stupid sexist story, obviously. And I don't think that was their goal or their plan. I mean, who knows? I didn't read the script, but until we know the story, we don't know. But I would like to know that stuff. I would like to know why, and not necessarily in the same way of Anakin. Like with Anakin, like in real life, that's the thing I like about Anakin's story, is in real life, you do get put in between a rock and a hard place. Not everything is actually black and white. Like, would you turn to the dark side to save your wife and child from dying? If you're a man, yeah, you fucking would. You would do it. And it sucks, but you would, because you would do what's right for your family. Like in The Godfather, put the family first. And I think that in the strangest of ways, Palpatine's story, why is he doing it? You know what I mean? And you don't really need it. It doesn't need to exist, but there could be a good story there. And there could be a good story that, like what I think it was James Luceno did in the Plagueis novel, laid the foundations for what really could be a really nice political thriller. And I mean, wouldn't it be cool if you had that story seen through new characters, and they were, really upfront supporting cast, but like somebody in the Coruscant media, is watching this thing unfold, can't get the story out, but then at the end they obviously don't succeed, or they do. They get it to Bail Organa at the right time, that he's able to, there's ways of making this story work. And I would love to just to see that kind of stuff unfold on screen. One of the things I both like and am like a little bit blah about is, so far, like, for the most part, except for Rangers of the New Republic, it sounds like a lot of it, an Acolyte, a lot of it is just like, here's a character and here's their like story. That stuff is cool. That concept is cool, but it doesn't necessarily mean innovation. It can mean it though. It surely can. But like the idea of being placed into a whole new story with all new characters and a new reason to be like, what's going to happen, and just to be entirely lost, that would be nice. And man, I love it as much as anybody when the character of the week shows up in Rebels. But there is a certain point where you're like, this is covering for true story. This is covering for true story advancement. And as much as I love Luke Skywalker showing up at the end of Mando as a story idea, it did kind of take the wind out of the sails in a way of the future, in the sense that, Grogu and Mando probably won't be together, right? I mean, they don't need to be. And maybe it'll go in a different direction. I mean, maybe it'll go like where he is trying to become Mandalore, or maybe Luke Skywalker will start using him to track down the kids he can't find, the kids who are in hiding, and and stuff like that. So maybe it'll go in a fun place. But when you have that ultimate power show up, or a character you already know, it just brings so much baggage. And it would be kind of cool to see like the Godfather, Lucas always, I think he said this, did you just say that Star Wars was like the Godfather in space? And he used to say that Star Wars Underworld, the television show that they didn't put out, was going to be that way too. And I would like to see that kind of stuff more kind of realized. Deadwood, which they kind of pulled from in season 2 of Mando, because Deadwood is just, I'm not I like aspects of Westerns, but like, if you put on a Western, I'm going to probably get bored. But man, Deadwood was so good. Dark Winter says the Palpatine situation is at least possible after all they did explain how he became Plagueis' apprentice. Yeah, I mean, and that story, when that book first went out, like when you got the first one, it said like, this is canon with the seal of George Lucas or something like that. And then by the time it went to actually be published for consumers, the Lucasfilm sale in episode 7 was underway, and that got the kibosh. So I kind of think that they're going to take it somewhere probably similar, though. I think there's such good groundwork in Legends, and that's what is controversial as it is. That's what was so wise about naming it Legends, is that there's so much to take from it and to build off of. Because like, people love dark what was it, Heir to the Empire. Good as a book. I don't personally, just don't believe it would be a good film. I don't think novels and films are the same thing. You'll lose a lot, and there's a lot that isn't there for Heir to the Empire, and that would just make it an easy translation, for instance. So I'm always like, yeah, okay, if you ever, those things it's good inspiration. It's good to look at to see what works, what cool names were there, what plot threads did work, and and you could obviously take plot threads from the expanded universe and Legends and see how they worked in the sequel trilogy, and you can kind of see what worked and what didn't, based off of how you feel about it, I guess. Dip. Luke was balanced. It wasn't for Vader revealing he was actually Anakin. It might not have turned out the way it did. Yeah, there's a lot in their relationship that's like you wonder in a lot of those scenes too, like how evil was Darth Vader? Would he have killed Luke? And you kind of get the answer in Return of the Jedi, but their relationship had gone on for a long time by then. He had a long time to reflect by Return of the Jedi, and I always wonder in Empire Strikes Back how that actually plays out. Ryan Joshua says Rian Johnson and Daisy Ridley are in talks to return to Star Wars, with John Boyega considering as well. Is there some kind of continuation of the Skywalker saga in the cards to happen? I got to be honest with you. I don't know if I buy any of that. In fact, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really buy it. Do I buy that Daisy Ridley will return someday? Yes. Unless Daisy Ridley is completely on fire. And it's funny because here's how it could work. If she's on fire as an actor and she's the hottest thing, when she wants to make things like these dominoes to fall of films that she wants to do, Disney's going to find a way to get her into Star Wars to make those dominoes fall. And if there are no dominoes to fall, she'll come back to Star Wars if they ask her, probably, because it's better to be working than to not be working. And I also don't see Daisy Ridley as like, I am a thespian, who's we haven't seen any of that where she feels like, it seems like she feels above it. She did seem a little bit bored with the whole thing. And I could see how it's completely boring having to keep everything a secret, having everything that you say, heavily scrutinized by PR people and fed to you by PR people. And so I could see how by the third film in the media stuff, you're just cashed. But I do think she'll come back. But at the same time, the one thing that I will say, and I don't have the contracts in front of me. I only hear what I hear, but with the they weren't paid a lot for their first Star Wars movies, and things were like renegotiated. But the way I heard it works is it's by appearances. And so like there's some people where you see like Oscar Isaac, right? Well, he was in Star Tours, right? That's an appearance. That's the same as like a film in terms of the contract. When he was in Resistance, that's the same as and I wondered about Resistance. Does that one voice recording session count as one appearance, or does every episode he's in count as an appearance? So Daisy Ridley hasn't really done too much outside stuff in a way. Like I don't think she showed up in Star Tours. Was she in Forces of Destiny? I'm not even sure if that was her from memory. But with all of that stuff said, yeah, I don't think I don't have solid details on it. I don't think Rian Johnson's movies are like Rey movies. I don't think it was going in that way. And I also think John Boyega is not an idiot. I think he's done enough movies to, he's done indie movies in the UK and he's done blockbuster movies, whether they were successful or not is a different story, but he's done them, that he knows how the business works outside of just Disney. And I think he's playing his cards right. I think he's making sure when he does return to Star Wars, because they are going to want him to return. He's a whole generation's like boy hero. When I think when my son is 12 or 13, 14, 15 years old, he's probably going to miss seeing Finn. Hey, Luke, do you want Finn to come back in a movie? He says no, but he's just being a jerk right now, I think. Anyways, I think he's gonna want. I think people are going to be nostalgic for it at some point, and I think he's setting that up wisely I wouldn't be surprised if Harrison Ford told him how to do it either, you know? But if you could get Harrison Ford to come back a few times, you could get anybody to come back. And I don't think that story is over, personally, but I don't really believe that Daisy Ridley's in talks to come back. They're eyeing Daisy Ridley again. I just don't buy it, man. I want to, but I don't. It just doesn't really there's nothing that seems to be clicking with me that seems to make it make sense. And that's from stuff I hear and stuff I just guess, you know. Write it down. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni created Grogu with a purpose. They can skip like 500 years after episode 9 and start a whole new saga from Grogu's point of view. Bam, all fresh, new. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I also wonder, are we going to see this perspective of characters who grow into being the disciples of Skywalker, if you will? With Grogu being the first one, will all of these shows that use Jedi characters, will the payoff in the end be that they kick him over to Luke, so that one of these days they can do that Skywalker's Jedi, you know, Jedi Club? Because it would make sense. I mean, it would be smart to take it in that direction, if you ask me. What's your opinion on Hayden Christensen on Kenobi? I think he better get off him. No, I think he is going to be Darth Vader in it, and I think he's going to be in the suit. But I wonder if it's going to be what we expect. Like I wonder if it's going to be nightmares, and are they going to have conversations, you know, through the Force at times? Will there be, you know, will it be like that? Because and I wonder if he's going to be, you know, the little pink-headed, no eyebrow Anakin for most of that film, or most of that series. Because I kind of hope so, and I wonder how important it is, though, at the same time, because I don't know, that there's things about the Kenobi show that I don't know, that I want to know, important things. And I have to say that, like, you know, what was that like? Is it going to be an important part for Kenobi's character, but not really important to the overall story of the show? That is the question. You know what I mean? Let's see. Hey, Kenneth. But would Grogu carry a new generation as a main character? I don't think so. They can't even make a Yoda movie. Yeah, that's one of the things that's like kind of interesting is um I don't even know how to state this. I want to say like educated speculation. I think that they wanted to make a Yoda movie, and I think a lot of the the High Republic stuff came out of that. And I think that, from what I was hearing, they wanted to do a Yoda movie set during the High Republic at one time. I have no idea if that's happening, or like where that went. There was even a Jabba the Hutt movie by Del Toro that was being pushed around, and then I think was either canceled or fell apart. And anyways, with like all of that said, you know, could Grogu carry it? Right now he's just a baby, right? So it's like, you know, what's his personality when he grows up? There's a lot to fill in. And it's like, you know, do you just skip to him being Yoda? Because if so, why not just do Yoda, right? Like, what's the a new spin there, and how they're gonna make that work? And I have to think, you know, Grogu is one of the people that, if he won't be killed by Kylo, or can't be killed, and some of them seem to, you know, who knows? When you have these kind of stories, like in the prequel era, there were thousands of Jedi. So when Order 66 wipes most of them out, it's, you know, you could probably say 100 lived, and with 100 living Jedi in that era, that's enough for a lifetime of stories for us, you know. So if you want to just flip that around a little bit, you kind of do the same thing with, like, who survives Skywalker's, or Kylo Ren's mutilation of the Skywalker Jedi Order. What was the Tatooine spaceport movie? That I think was linked to that Jabba the Hutt movie, probably. I can't say for certain. That's one of those things where stuff was starting to come out, or starting to get the early information on it. They even started making stuff and getting ahead of things. I had heard that the R5D4 that we saw in The Mandalorian was made at Pinewood for that Tatooine based movie. And yeah, so I think that stuff was all going to kind of probably was either going to link together or it was the same thing. And there was some it was probably going to play into essentially not Solo 2. I don't really think Solo 2 was necessarily like in the cards, but I think it was going to he was going to play into it probably. Is there any truth to bad blood existing between Abrams and Rian Johnson? I really don't know. I really don't think it's as soap opera style like as it's reported. It seems a little bit sensationalized. It wouldn't. I mean, how can you have two creative people trying to tell a story and there not be some friction? And at one point there were a bunch of stories coming out, and somebody very high at Lucasfilm, who I'm pretty good friends with, literally laughed the whole thing off to me and said there has been disagreements, heated moments, but it's nothing that any of these people have ever reported. It's about things that ended up not even mattering. And so that's all I know. And I don't and I think when I they were really playing it down, and they're usually pretty honest with me. I trust their bent on things. But this is my hunch, okay? This is my conjecture, but I think Abrams took the story where he took it, looking at perceived backlash. And I think that puts more fuel to that fire of trying to be a people pleaser. And like you'll see people who who want to make sensational stories on YouTube, like make it look like Rian Johnson was attacking the fans. And it's just like, it's kind of like what Mangold said. If you're a fan, you like something. If you're a fan of something, you like it. And those people don't really seem to like a lot. And everything is condescension and hate. And so they, I think, have cultivated this idea that these things exist more than they do. And, if you tell a lie a lot of times, people start to think it's true. People start to believe whatever slant the lie takes on. And that I think it's rooted in that. I wouldn't, if you want my opinion on, did Rian Johnson see The Rise of Skywalker and clap and say bravo? I doubt it. But I also think that most filmmakers didn't either. And I also would have to say he was probably probably just resigned to that's the way the cookie crumbles. That's just my take on it. And I don't know Rian Johnson, like we don't hang out, but I've seen him talk many times, and I've been around him a few times, and his temperament doesn't really seem to line up with the way that he's depicted in the media, but in the fan-based media. And when I say fan, I use that loosely, God, I feel so bad that I cannot keep up with the chat while I am rambling. So what is Kenneth? But okay, no, I went back too far. See, now I'm going back too far. There we go. There we go. And here we go. Wait. I think people were mentioning the Spaceport movie being linked to Solo. Yeah, I probably started that. And that was because I had reason to believe it because of things that they were storing from Solo and at the time. And then that stuff was eventually, once that movie was canceled, was all sent over to the train yard over here about a few miles from my house where they filmed Mandalorian. And yeah, and I was over there. I got a couple of pictures that are, I don't think they're very exciting, but they were moving in new sand and more moisture evaporators to clearly film more Tatooine stuff for Kenobi out at the exterior location. And I meant to post them, and will try to get to it. If I post these videos up on MakingStarWars.net so people know that I'm doing them, I will maybe just throw them up there. Like I said, they're nothing to write home about. Like I I think they're interesting for like what they are, but but I'm the guy who gets excited when he sees a moisture evaporator, and I don't expect everyone else to. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it could be like a so what? What happened with Matt Smith? Because he was officially cast, dude. That is the question. I mean, so I feel like enough time has gone by. I can probably dance around this in the right way without getting anybody in trouble. So I had people at Pinewood, people on the crew at Pinewood who were like, Matt Smith he's in the movie. And then you jump ahead, and then I have people in editorial avenues, and they were like, I never saw anything with Matt Smith. Then I had people at Pinewood who show me stuff for Matt Smith. And then I have another person who confirmed to me that he was there. And I'm like, so was all of this, was all this just a crazy cover? I mean, I've speculated that at the end of the film, because, oh yeah, I don't remember if I talked about this or not. Maybe I did. But do you remember how there was that rumor that, how did the rumor go? Palpatine was going to become his young self at the end, and he was going to fight Rey, and then he gets stabbed by Kylo, and his spirit jumps into him, and then he kills himself to kill the spirit. That was made by some chucklehead at a major, let's just say a major corporation who makes almost all of the Star Wars stuff. And this chucklehead who makes up the rumor knew the real story, so was able to base it in fact, right? But goes and gives the story to me and a bunch of other people. But the idea was supposed to be, he gives it to a bunch of other people in around the companies. And they were supposed to, because they wanted to trace where the leaks were coming from. But the chucklehead gave the same story to everyone. So he just made that rumor up. And that further put fuel to the fire that Matt Smith was Palpatine. So what a moron. I mean, I should probably stop saying that. They're probably going to set me up with fake stories or something now. but yeah, so that was actually like, and that was somebody going rogue, like Lucasfilm and that kind of stuff. They don't really they don't do the disinformation stuff in that way. They don't need to. They don't need to get the egg on their face from it. But this was somebody going rogue, trying to stop stuff coming from their company, and just fucked it up, honestly. You know what I mean? So let's see. Do you think there is any real way to make Star Wars films that the majority of people are content with? Do you think this divided fan base of hatred for Disney Lucasfilm can ever be fixed? Absolutely not. Because what you have is, we have this really flexible term for fan today, and we have it for two reasons. The first reason is people are pretty culty, just to be straight up with you. I don't want to be alone. I want everyone to like what I like. Why doesn't everyone like what I like? And so you'll see, oh no, if you like a Star Wars movie, you're a fan. You'll see that really pushed around. And then the other side of it is straight up capitalism. That, yeah, you're a fan, buy a t-shirt, buy a mug, now you're a fan. And so what you end up having is absolutely no bar. And I don't know how you set one, for the record, and I don't like exclusionary shit. I'm come as you are. You know what I mean? But with it, there is absolutely no bar for what being a fan means. What, you liked Return of the Jedi when you were 4? Cool. Does that make you a fan today? If you only like, it's such a weird thing. So what you end up having, though, are these people who make a living off of disliking it. And YouTube, dude, like, you can just, if you say something terrible, like when the UFOs are confirmed to be aliens, if you were to say, oh my God, the aliens are here, they're bringing us all the technology, they love us, and they want to give us an eternal peace and love. Well, that YouTube video will not do as well as the aliens are here and they're going to murder your family. And they essentially do the same thing. Rian Johnson's here to bring the culture war to your family, and he's making the frogs gay. Chemtrails, homie. It's constantly that. So until YouTube doesn't reward that, and until we are smart enough to not give that our attention, it's going to be this way. And it's like, it's always kind of been that way in other things, what's his name, who was in Mandalorian, the comedian. He made fun of Star Wars fans because it was the big thing, right? And that's what comedians do. Nothing wrong with that. It's funny. And you want to make people laugh, and you also want it to be relatable because everybody knows us, but it's the same kind of thing. Everybody knows it, and not everybody loves it. And if you don't love it, it's really fun. And if you live in a really small world, and sometimes I can't lie, sometimes I've isolated myself too much, and I've lived in a very small world, and this stuff starts to matter too much. And as long as you have that, you're going to be able to say the opposite. And there's just too many political models that show how to do it. So it will always be that way until the Star Wars, and it will always be that way no matter what, but until the Star Wars fandom goes, you know what? I'm not going to take it seriously, and I'm not going to believe scoops from them either. It's like, that's what's so dumb. It's like, I'll be honest with you, like, the best way to get a source is enthusiasm. The best way to get a source is enthusiasm, and by asking questions. I don't think anybody has ever taken a hot steaming dump on something and somebody just come up to show, hey, I want to tell you why it's good. No, that person seems irrational. But when you ask the right questions and you're enthusiastic, people will then, hey, okay, you want to know a little something? And you start that rapport. So it's really kind of funny when you hear like Kathleen Kennedy is going to be fired every day. It's like, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But it's like there's a section of people as well who just want to believe in the fantasy, or like they feel like if this one thing happened, they don't understand how movies are made. They don't understand production whatsoever. And they just think that if this one figurehead's moved out, everything changes. And it's really not true. Like, even right now, I think if Kathleen Kennedy said, fuck Star Wars, this shit's for clowns, I'm going to go make movies where people age in reverse instead. Benjamin Button 2. I'm going to make the story of Benjamin Button's grandpa. If they were to go to make that movie, and she like left, the pictures she's set up are still coming, and the writers who were hired are still hired. Like, you know what I mean? Like even I think after Kathleen Kennedy leaves, her influence and feeling and vibe is going to still be there for years to come. But at the same time, I don't. It's like it's such a weird thing when they like want to put the SJW stuff on people. They like really do it hard on me sometimes, and it's just like it's kind of buffoonish in a way, because the quote SJWs, they've always hated my guts. You know, I've never like pander to them. I've always kind of done my own thing. Like I either when everybody hates you, you're either doing it totally right or very wrong, and I think I've done both. But with that said, removing like Kathleen Kennedy, for instance, is that really going to change the fact that like Star Wars is mostly made by women, and that might be what's kind of offending you in a weird way? Like, not really. And you know, they're the things that they're perceiving as SJW stuff is usually has to actually do with the fact that Lucasfilm is a pretty diverse company, and so you are seeing those things pop up there for that reason. And they want to tie it into like a culture war thing and stuff. And yeah, it's all yeah. I don't know how I forgot Bill Burr. I listen to the Monday Morning Podcast like all the time. Like if you haven't listened to it, it's fucking great. And in no way do I want Bill Burr to get canceled at all. Don't get me wrong. I am just still so fucking surprised Gina Carano got canceled well before Bill Burr. Like when they hired him, I was just like, are they fucking serious right now? And I was like, oh, you know. But I mean, I think Bill Burr, you know, while a hilarious comedian who I think usually holds a pretty honest viewpoint, I think that kind of is what makes him not so easily cancelable. So the fan base is the fan base is so fragmented. I do think TV is the best path forward because there's a possibility each show can cater to different groups. Yeah, that is true. Like, you know, when I was in academia, one of the things I would notice from poor academics is they would not critique what was there. They would critique what wasn't there. That's like, oh, you don't have a really good thing to say? Talk about what's not there. And it's not fair. It's not how it should be done. But that's what's great about TV, right? Is when something isn't there, oh, everybody's saying this heart is missing or whatever happens to be. Yeah, then they could eventually find story arcs, and it could lead them down creative roads, creative detours that do, you know, please everyone. And like, you know, I think Clone Wars, to some extent, it wasn't like Clone Wars was like bending its back to make people happy, but you had that with Clone Wars, you know, like when it became very clear that Ahsoka calling people Sky Guy and Artui wasn't really going very well, they really did pull back on that kind of stuff. And but had it just been that film that was released, that's all you heard about that film, was how pissed people were that they said that. And I liked that film. I had a good time seeing it in the theater. I saw it in the theater a few times, and I had a good time with it. But I definitely think that was a mistake to release that Clone Wars movie. I think Filoni feels the same too. I don't think that they really wanted to take 4 episodes of the show and turn it into a film, you know? I kind of like Bill Burr's character, though some didn't. I'll be honest with you. I think he gave the best performance in Star Wars in a scene, in one scene, performance as an actor I've seen. Like when he shoots that guy, like you can feel like Bill Burr is taking a lot of like pent up rage on that concept from life, and he is able just to funnel that energy into that moment. And like that was easily one of my favorite moments in Star Wars in general, you know. And I'm blown away because I did not expect him to be anything more than a wisecracking asshole. And yeah, that was good. And I hope whatever he has going on in the future of Star Wars stuff, I hope they play to those strengths more, because I don't know if I said this first or if somebody else did, but that was like MASH. You know what I mean? That like he has that ability, and I had no idea, but man, it was good, and I want to see more. But I hope Kenobi works with the movies. Yeah, yeah. I think that there's just so much time. Like I keep saying, like the way that we perceive time is like we see it linear all the time in such a way that it makes it hard to put anything into a linear timeline that we've already seen. There's so much time that you can do so much. And what I think is cool about this is like, what if, Kenobi's not a Jedi. What if he does meet someone? Like they could give Kenobi a kid. Like they could set that up. Maybe he doesn't even know about it, but it's not like he's got to follow those things. Is he a Jedi? I don't know. He has training to do, but who knows? I mean, but what I'm trying to say is that there's so many paths, so many ways to and in life you could be on a path and fall off of it and then get back on it. Like that's what if at some point that happens? You know what I mean? To him, 20 years out in the desert's a long time to not say fuck this maybe at one point and then go back to it once you realize a kid's life is in danger. Who knows though? And God, that's the thing about Star Wars fans that gets me is like they don't want the characters. They want the characters to be human to fall in love with them. Once they fall in love with the character, they don't want it to be human anymore. And that's what makes the story stale. So, I'm hoping for a very humanized story with him, whatever it is. Because I mean, it's like when you look at that guy's life, like if he was real, Jesus, that's rough. You're gonna marry. Kate Blanchett wants to run away with you, have babies, and you're like, oh man, you know what? I'm hanging out with Liam Neeson. Yeah, he's got pee on his pants sometimes because he drinks a lot. But hey, he's a fun guy to hang out with, and I'm hanging out with Yoda and Mace Windu. I'm sorry, but bros first, But it just makes me hope that as our kind of way of reading TV screens really fast is really sped up in this last 20 years. I really hope that our understanding of character does too, as we get into these like long character pieces, because every day, like I get like a DM from somebody asking me a question, and it's like, man, you're nice and thank you for being polite and good question, but you don't understand storytelling at all, and you have these fears based off of it. And so, like, yeah, that's one of the things I would say if you're ever interested in like story structure, which would really help you kind of also understand spoilers to an extent, is Truby has a book. A guy named Truby has a book on story structure. It's really, really pretty helpful. Hey, it's old Ben. I think another issue in critiquing content is for a lot of social media is reviews either have to be the best ever or worst ever. People get mad about the middle ground. Yeah, you really do. You have best ever, worst ever, and then middle, and then you have this interpretation of it too, because sometimes when it's like middle ground, it's either truly middle ground, truly mixed, or it's somebody who wants to say it's crap but doesn't want to burn a bridge with a corporation, and that's why, like, when it comes to reviews, it's so hard to find a reviewer that you connect with. But when you do, stick with them. But like, if it's a corporate based nerd site, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. Like there's a lot of those writers want to say things, but who knows what they can say with what their editors will let them, And then also when it comes to on the fan site side of things, a lot of those people, everything's just good. And, it's the old saying, when everything's good, nothing is, right? It's like, not everything is always at 10. And like that's what I get really bored. Like when I listen to a podcast, like that's what kills me or stops me from listening to some people's podcast. Like not them. It's just when it comes time for their like review, they decided to only focus on the positive and to simply say everything's great. And I do think it's important as a fan. Like as a fan, you are kind of a cheerleader, right? You are, but you're a cheerleader in as much as you are for your own children. When your own children are getting up to go to school and getting ready, you want to go like, I believe in you. Have a good day. Make it work. Do the right thing. I'll see you when you get home. And for as a fan, when you get home is when that movie comes out or that TV show or that book. But when you found out that your a kid took a deuce on the playground. No, that isn't a 10 out of 10 at that point. You got to call it. And obviously, but also, to take my analogy way too far, you don't punish the the franchise by making outrage videos on YouTube for 6 years because a sequel to a movie didn't work for you. Like I will never understand like that mentality. Like I'll be straight up with you. I loved Neuromancer. William Gibson is one of my favorite writers. I actually need to reread his stuff because it's been so long. But I really loved Neuromancer and I really loved William Gibson. And when The Matrix came out, I was a little bit annoyed with it because it kind of stole a lot in a way, but didn't. But it was enough where I was like, okay, you know what? No, this is just derivative, but in the best way. I dig this. And I saw the sequels and I just didn't care. I didn't connect. I don't even remember them now. But I can't imagine like making podcasts and videos about it today, even though I'm mentioning it right now. I can't imagine making that my personality. It's very strange. It's very sad in a weird way because like it is hard to find stuff that you like. And I get that. But it's just so much better to spend your time with what you love and what you like. And that's also the problem with this YouTube algorithm. It reminds me of that. Remember that Twitter AI bot that just went racist in like 2 seconds? I can't remember its name now. Look it up if you've never seen it. It's very sad and hilarious at the same time. Like, oh my God, that's fucking funny. And also, God, I hate you, humanity. You are terrible. All at the same time. And but it's a little bit like YouTube's algorithm is a lot like that in a way, Bill Burr will ask on Mando because he's awesome, A+ Emmy worthy actor. Carano was a lousy actress and she was easy to cut loose. Her flat acting won't be missed. Yeah, I like I haven't talked too much about it because it mostly just made me sad, and like on one hand, like it's like if you've been around people in like in fighting, in MMA and stuff like that, it's like, what do you expect from them? They're not I hate to use the word, but they're not the most woke people, and their education is not in social issues. And then on one hand, I feel bad for her. I am not justifying anything that she did. Like the mask stuff, like so stupid, but sad because it means that she wasn't believing in reality because she has trusted the wrong sources for her news. And she was just living on another planet. And it's fucking sad that she wasn't smart enough to be able to put that together, that she didn't have anybody in her corner to tell her. Like, it just kind of really bums me out. And her acting was not stellar. I totally agree with you there. At the same time, with Star Wars, it doesn't have to be. I'm a prequel guy though, so you could see where I kind of put things. I put things more on character and motivations than I do necessarily on performance. Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars movie, so it's like it just shows you kind of where I'm coming from, coming at this stuff from. But yeah, it's sad that she ruined her Star Wars career probably over this. And the information was like wrong. And on the flip side of it, I think that the people who were trying to help her with the pronoun stuff, it's like they went about it the wrong way. You know, it was almost like they were setting her up to say the wrong thing. I feel like she's responsible ultimately for all of it. I'm not taking any of that from her for what it's worth. But she also, like, she got set up. Like, they fucking knew that she wasn't going to understand it. They knew that she wasn't going to take it right. And by the time that anybody was stepping in and saying anything kind of correctly, the damage was already done. And but yeah, I think it's a bummer because I've had to come up with the skill of disassociating an actor from the character. I've met enough of these people to know, like, if you can't, you just can't enjoy anything, you know? And so I can do that. So I'm going to miss Cara Dune as a character. I'm going to miss Cara where they might have taken her. I am bummed that we had an investment in that character now through those first 2 seasons that will probably not pay off if they don't recast. I don't know if they can recast without just it giving ammo to, you know, people who want to make drama. So I don't know if they would recast it. And as you know, man, I'm just gonna fuck it. I'm this far deep into it. I have no love for the right or the left in the Star Wars community. You know, it's like a circle, and it's like they both of that ends of that circle meet at 12 o'clock, and at 12 o'clock is insanity. And so not trying to play both sides of the road here. Everybody could hate me for all I care, but both ends are just as fucking nuts. And do I think that it was unfair that Gina Carano got fired and somebody else didn't? Not really, because Gina Carano was telling people not that wearing a mask was like fucking ridiculous. Like, she was like literally endangering the lives of the fan base, of the consumers. And it's so I could see a lot of reasons why a lot of that shit was just nuts. But the whole thing was crazy. And at the end of the day, like, I have to ask, I think here's what everybody should be asking. Who won? I don't think anybody won. I think we all lost. I think you pigeonholed, not you, but somebody, you know, she was pigeonholed into this place now that she probably can't come back from. So can she grow or learn as a person? And if she does, will they accept it? They won't. They won't allow it. And so it's so fucking, like, the whole thing just bums me out, you know? And it's like, yeah, I haven't even talked about it. I was gonna write about it at one point, and I was just like, you know what? I don't want to get in the mix while this is hot, because there is no winner. There just isn't. You say the circle. You say there's like a circle, more like a circus. Yeah, you're right, Ben. Yeah, I don't. Who knows what comes out of my dumb mouth, out of this mush mouth? What does this say? They should replace her with Trisha Helfer. Trisha is an awesome, accomplished, beautiful actress all the fans love. I wouldn't be, I would not be against it. I would rather her either they do something like that's one of the things, like, science fiction is supposed to be, you know, and there is more fantasy here, but fantasy and science fiction is a way of dealing with the world and maybe coming to some understandings of how we can make it better or what we can fix. And maybe it does stay how we should be, or how the creatives think we should be. And that's where there's a lot of tension, I think, in the recent years. But it's such a shame, like I said, that all of that happened and that it went down that way for nothing. You know, it was all for nothing. But I would love to see Trisha Helfer in Star Wars. In fact, I'm gonna say I do not disagree with you that she could play Cara Dune perfect, but I would rather her get a new character so that way she doesn't get the baggage. Because whoever comes at the role is going to get the baggage. You're going to have crazy left wingers going, "Hey, what are your pronouns? Give us your pronouns. Give them to us now." And then you're going to have the other guys going, "You're an SJW who took the job of," it's just going to be a fucking nightmare. So, you know what I mean? Nobody wins when everybody loses something from a situation. Exactly. And that is one of the things like on Twitter, fandoms, man, like, oh, dude, like you have like a bunch of people who just want to say like, "Oh, I'm sorry that happened to you." Like no matter what it is, but it doesn't amount to much. And it amounts to a lot of people reliving their traumas over and over. And we had pregnancy loss at one point. Really bummer time for me. And I started to realize that the people I had become friends with who went through the same, not all of them, but a few of them were like literally just re-triggering me all day because their post-traumatic stress was re-triggering them, and they became kind of vampiric. They were wanting that trauma and that grief to be relived, reactivated constantly to work through it, and they couldn't. And like that's the one thing about like all of this internet culture that we have and the fandom that we have and stuff. It's just like, man, without proper mental health care, like this doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't seem like it's healthy. So yeah, I have to say, like, use your social media and enjoy it, but always step away and just remember that it is real. The things you do on there do hurt people, and it does hurt when they hurt you. At the same time, so many people on there are living in an AI simulation in terms of how they treat it too. Like they don't see it like it's real to them, but everyone else isn't. It's it's a fucked up concept. I have a feeling sociologists are going to look back at this stage of social media and the internet like, what were those fucking wackos doing? Can you believe this shit? Yeah, Twitter is a wild west. That is one way of putting it, and it's like the shit that people will say, true and false, like it gets echo chambered so much you just can't even you can't fight it. Like it literally defeats me. I just go like, okay, that's what everybody believes. That's what everybody thinks. Whatever. I quit. I'm gonna go out now to a cafe and hang out with friends and live in the real world now. But yeah. So, anyways, yeah, all of that stuff bummed me out. But there's so much good stuff to look forward to. I hope in some weird way everybody grows from that situation. I hope in some way that atonement's reached, And I do hope that Barriss Offee, to get back to the start of this show, is going to be in Ahsoka, and that the Illuminati is rocking. Because Illuminati, they've had some scoops the last couple of weeks that like are shit I really care about, like the Vampire Chronicles. But it did not make me happy. It confused me. And so I'm hoping that their stuff is legit. If anybody can tell me like how, what their track record looks like, I would really be interested in knowing that. And I will hopefully do one of these again really soon. I did not intend to do one as quickly as I did. And this was the first time I set up like scheduling it, and I only scheduled it out for like 10 minutes because I just wanted to see how it worked. But now that I know, I could hopefully schedule these things out a bit further and let everybody know what's a bit more time. But thanks, guys. And if you like the show, like it and all that jazz, and please share it around and stuff like that, because the more people that we have checking it out, the more incentive we have to do it, and the more good questions we had. And I want to thank everybody today for showing up, who could show up and who brought me like really good questions to make my 20-minute idea turn into an hour and 39 minutes. You guys are the best, and it's really fun hanging out with Star Wars pals. That is the damn truth. So I will hopefully see you guys really, really soon. If anything interesting breaks, I'll and I'll be honest with you, it has to be interesting not only to you but to me as well. So if something interesting breaks, I'll try to get on here and do it. My kids are looking at me right now like, Dad, are we going to the park or not? So I'm going to take off here and take them to the park. And thanks, guys. I'll see you guys soon. Okay, bye.